think too much about the war because it wasn't really affecting us all that much. My birthday was coming up 2 days after the announcement was made, and I was anxious to go home and be home for my birthday. So anyway, that's where I was. I was born in Melbourne, in Northcote in fact, and lived there until well into my 20s. Lived at home, had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. The second brother, who joined the army, just didn't tell my mother, he just went off and joined. My mother became a bit anxious that I was going to be called up, so she thought she'd better get me a job in the Defence Department, which she did, and or which we arranged. And I went down to Fisherman's Bend to the aircraft production company, which it was called. They made the Beaufort bombers and those, and I was in a typing pool there. Generally, life just went on in Melbourne. A lot of girls of my age were joining the services, and I wanted to join the Air Force because that was the prettiest uniform at the time. I really wasn't cut out for office work, I think, and went to St Vincent's Hospital and worked in the X-ray department as a typist. And 2 of the young girls in the same office were waiting to be called up for their nursing. They were only 17 and they had to wait for 12 until they were 18 to start their nursing. And over lunch one day they said, "Oh, why don't you start nursing?" And I said, "Oh, I wouldn't be any good at it. Sure, I'd faint at the first sight of blood, and I don't think I'd be any good at all." And they said, "Oh, you're not game." So I said, "Oh, no." So that sparked me. So I went up, asked for an application form, and Mother Rectress was delighted to see me and thought it was a wonderful idea that I'd start nursing. So when I went home and told my mother, she was horrified. She thought that was the worst thing I should ever do, but however, I was determined to go ahead, and I've never looked back. I've never been sorry that I took on the bet. I was notified by Canberra or asked first of all, whether I would accept the position of matron at ACMI's Penguin, which is the Sydney hospital. And of course I was delighted. I said, yes, why not? So I was promoted and sent to HMAS Penguin. It was also during the Vietnam War, and we received a lot of American people who were sent back from Vietnam waiting to be transferred back to America. And most of them were very psychotic and very difficult. And so that was quite a traumatic time really for everybody, because looking after these boys was quite dreadful. There was one particular boy, I remember, no matter what we did, put a 24-hour watch on him, he used to get out of his room, don't know how. We never did find out. He just seemed to have a magic way of getting out of his room, and we'd find him down in the car park, sitting on top of a car, going, ooh, 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 ooh. Just pretending he was still shooting at whatever. And he'd be there in the middle of the night or in the middle of the afternoon, or whenever he disappeared, would only be the person who was supposedly watching over him turned their back, they'd be off. One of my family, a young man, a few years ago, pretty well 10 years ago now, I suppose, at one of the family gatherings, sidled up to me, and he was only about 16, 17 at the time, and said, "Oh, Auntie Pat, I'm thinking of joining the army." And I said, "Oh, join the Navy, it's much better."